Welcome to the Prince Eats. Here's a quick video with tips and tricks on how to get the perfect crust on a steak. Step-by-step directions are in the description. If you enjoy this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let's jump right into it. You'll need some good cuts of steak. Here I have ribeye steak, and I also have one New York strip steak. It's critical that you bring the steak out of the refrigerator and let it get to room temperature for 30 to 45 minutes. Reason being is you don't want your pan doing too many things. You just want to get a crust on your steak. You don't want your pan to have the responsibility of bringing your steak up to room temperature. The colder the steak, the longer it will take to crust, and you also risk overcooking your steak. Pat your steak dry as much as possible, and right before you put your steak into the pan, go ahead and generously salt and pepper your steak. Don't worry about using too much salt because after all, once you put that steak into the pan, it's going to lose a lot of that salt anyway. For ingredients, you'll need some butter. Rosemary and thyme work really well with steak. You'll need an oil with a high smoke point. Here I'm using avocado oil. Although not necessary, but I do recommend using a meat thermometer. There are plenty on the market, many of which have apps that you can monitor on your phone. Having a meat thermometer takes all of the guesswork out of cooking meats. Meat thermometers are all about precision cooking. I recommend using a cast iron skillet because it's really good at maintaining its heat. You want this pan to be extremely hot, so go ahead and turn the heat on high and let it sit just until you see it start to smoke. Concerning the oil, you can do this one of two ways. You can oil the steak, and then what that does is limit the amount of oil that you use, or you can use the oil directly in the pan, at which point you just want to use a little bit to coat the inside of the pan. Because there's going to be a lot of smoke, typically what I do is open a couple windows in the house for ventilation. Once that pan is nice and hot, and you can always tell because it'll be smoking, go ahead and add your steak to the pan. You'll also know you got the pan nice and hot because immediately upon putting the steak in the pan, you're going to hear a really loud sizzle like how you heard it here. Once that steak hits the pan, do not touch it, do not flip it. What I'm doing here is using my tongs to pat the steak just so that I can be sure the bottom of the steak maintains even contact with the skillet. This step is only necessary if you know you have a cut of steak that doesn't have an even surface. If you feel like you need something to do to get your mind off of having to flip that steak, you can always go to theprinceeats.com. You can find a bunch of easy and quick recipes there, or you can check me out on social media. I'm at The Prince Eats on all social media platforms, including Instagram. After about 3 to 5 minutes, you can go ahead and flip that steak. As you can see, we got a really good crust here. And I recommend not flipping the steak more than one time because what happens, you really start to lose that crust and color flipping it more than once. Don't worry about cooking the steak on the other side. It'll finish cooking in the oven. You can go ahead and add your thermometer to the steak and check your app to see how long you have to cook it in the oven. For me, I like medium to medium well, so I need to cook mine in the oven for about 5 to 8 minutes at 400 degrees. A really good way to finish that steak off is butter basting it after letting it rest with some butter and garlic. There's your steak with a nice crust. Dinner is served. Visit theprinceeats.com for more simple and easy meal ideas just like this one.